Hello everyone, welcome to another Flesh and Blood video. In this one, we'll be taking a look at my personal favorite hero from Part the Mistveil, Zen, Tamer of Purpose. As I said in the last video, I'll be trying to show you two different versions of each of these decks, and for Zen, today we'll be looking at the Bonds of Ancestry version of Zen. Of course, both do play Bonds, but this one plays all 9 copies. This is a more bursty version of Zen that tries to set up its graveyard by blocking with or playing certain cards, and then once you get enough pumps and you're set up enough, you can block with your helmet and your shoes to try and do as much damage in one turn. Zen normally tries to do that, of course, but this deck specializes in it, playing more Bonds of Ancestry to try and get more attacks, as well as playing Shifting Winds of the Majestic Beast to try and turn your Tigers into other combo cards, mainly Descendant Gustwaves, but you can also turn them into things like 100 Winds or Twin Twisters / Spinning Wheel Kick to get bonus combos with some other cards that are in your deck. With that said, let's get started with the deck list. Starting with the hero, Zen, Tamer of Purpose. Zen is a 4 intellect, 40 health, mystic ninja hero. He has a once per turn ability at instant speed to pay 3 chi. Create a crouching tiger in your hand and search your deck for a card with combo, banish it, then shuffle. You may play it this turn. Zen's ability is very similar to Katsu, the main ninja that we all know and love. However, there are definitely some differences. Katsu requires a hit to get his search, and he requires to discard a 0-cost card. Zen doesn't have that. You only need a chi, which arguably can be harder to get since it requires you to play a few of your blue cards. Thankfully, Zen has a lot of tools to help alleviate that downside in his equipment mainly, which is why Zen is such a strong aggro deck right now. Let's look at a few of those equipment now. We're going to skip the weapon for now because it's just a decent weapon, but we will still talk about it. We're going to start with Traverse the Universe. This is a 2-block Mystic Equipment headpiece with Blade Break, and when it defends, we get to search our deck for an inner chi, reveal it, and put it in our hand. We looked at this card last week when we talked about Enigma, but in Zen, it works so much better. Because Zen has such a strong ability, Traverse the Universe theoretically just becomes a free Crouching Tiger and any combo card you want. So as long as we can get 1 chi in our deck, we can set up for an incredibly strong turn just by blocking with this headpiece. Zen's specific legendary equipment is 12-Petal Kasaya. This is a 2-block Mystic Ninja chess piece with Blade Break, and it has 2 effects. The second effect, because it's not that important, is an instant speed effect to pay 3 chi and destroy it to make a Zen State token. In some matchups, this is pretty useful. Sometimes you'll have to use it to save you, but that's not the main reason we're playing this card. The main reason would have to be its first effect. Whenever you transcend, you may gain a resource. One of the strongest effects of any chess piece in the entire game. On turn Zen tries to transcend, he's already playing out one of his blues, and he's going to be pitching the other blue to his own ability, so it's hard to gain a lot of resources. Usually on turns you transcend, you'll only need 1 or 2 on average to play something like a Descendant Gustwave or a Mauling Key. So, the 12-Petal Kasaya gives you an insane amount of value, giving you those few resources you need on turns where you actually transcend. If this chess piece didn't exist, I don't think Zen would be as strong as he is now. This is just one of the best equipment in the entire game, and anyone who plays Zen is going to tell you that same thing because this card is so vital to his playstyle. Looking at his arms, this is the least suspect equipment that Zen can play, the Tiger Stripe Shuko. This is an equipment all the way back from Uprising, but it has a pretty simple effect. The second attack action you play with 2 or less base power gets +1 and can't be prevented. A strong effect to help punch through some of those pesky illusionists as well as just free damage every turn. It's 2 block and blade break, so you do get some nice equipment from it, but its main boon is letting your tigers get some extra oomph whenever you have a turn that you generate multiples of them. And finally, we have the Strides of Reprisal. These are Mystic Ninja legs, and they're 1 block and blade break, and they have a simple effect of when this defends, create a crouching tiger in your hand. Stride of Reprisal is honestly an insanely strong equipment. Being able to block and make a tiger in your hand is important for 1 card and 1 card exactly. Art of War. Because you can make the tiger in your hand, you can banish it to an Art of War, pretty much making Zen the best Art of War hero in the game since he's the only one who can play Stride of Reprisal. You can use the tiger from Zen's ability, but the fact that you can just get a 7 card hand immediately when blocking with this and your headpiece is absolutely insane. And it makes Zen an incredibly strong setup character. If anything had to be taken out of Zen's kit, however, I think Stride of Reprisal would be the thing that LSS goes for. If they take out Traverse, which they're not going to do because they refuse to ban Crown of Seeds for the longest time, it would hurt Enigma. If they take out Kasaya, this deck would be useless, and I don't think they want to make this deck unplayable. Stride of Reprisal has an easy replacement in the Pouncing Paws, which is very similar. Instead of Blade Break, it's Battle Worn, and it banishes the tiger, and it makes it playable this turn, instead of giving it to you in your hand. I think that's a fair enough swap, and forcing players to play those instead of Stride of Reprisal will definitely slow the deck down, because it would require you to use Zen's tiger from his own ability for your Art of Wars, instead of just making a tiger and doing that. And it also forces you to only do it in your Traverse window, where you can use Stride plus Traverse together or separate. So on a turn where you don't need the tiger, but you really want the chi, you can get it with Traverse. Or on a turn that it's really big, you have an Art of War, but you don't have a chi in your deck, you don't have to worry about it. You can just block with the shoes and get the tiger. But for right now, before LSS does anything else, which will probably have this same normal Zen for Nationals, which is apparently in a few days, which I didn't realize. This card is absolutely insane. One of the best cards to be playing. I wouldn't play Zen without any of these 4 equipment in your main board. Now, let's talk about the weapon. Tiger Taming Kakra. This is a 2 cost to attack with Go Again, 2 power ninja weapon. It is a staff. Notably, you can play this in any other ninja. Don't play it in Phi. You can play it in Tiger Katsu, but is Tiger Katsu really that good? No. This is really just a Zen weapon, but it is Zen's best weapon. It gives your next Crouching Tiger this combat chain +1, which is really strong since you can't guarantee that your tigers are going to get pumped, since the only real pumps in the deck are your Art of Wars, your Domain Expansion, and your Shukos, so this can be an easy pump to your first tiger. And even then, just a 2 for 2 Go Again really is not that bad. Good on 2 card hands, since you have a few 1 for 4s/5 that do some nice damage. This card is just good. I wouldn't play Zen without it. It's just a really nice tool for him to have. Before we take a look at the deck's main board, let's take a look at some of our backup equipment for some of our other matchups. Starting with our AB, we are playing 2 AB. No Ring Gloves will come in versus every AB matchup. meaning Runeblade and Wizard. The reason for no rune gloves instead of the shoes is because into Runeblade we can still block with our shoes, still allowing us to generate that tiger in hand. So it's better to trade out our gloves for the burst potential of the Strider Appraisal. But into Wizard, we can't block with our shoes, so we'll still be bringing in the Tide Flippers to get one extra AB. We also have Mask of the Pouncing Lynx in the sideboard. This is here, again, mainly for Wizard, just so we can have that extra attack to help try and kill them. The Wizard matchup is purely a race, trying to see if you can kill them before they can combo you out. And since you have a lot of blues, you can pay for some Arcane Barrier, but you really need to be able to force your opponent to either block with everything and then try to kill them over it, or kill them through their combo. And Mask not only helps you kill them over their block, but also helps you save cards in your hand, so if you need to, you can pay for AB if they do decide to go for their combo. Mask the Pouncing Lynx is a pretty great card. It's the card that we all played before we realized that Traverse was absolutely insane, and it's still in the deck now just because it's a pretty strong card. Next, let's take a look at the deck's main board. First, I'm going to start with our suite of instants, our Chi, since that's the most important thing in the deck. This deck is playing all 9 available Chi. No, we're not playing the Fabled. It's not very good. The reason we're on all of this Chi is because getting Zen's ability is incredibly important. We want to be able to do it hopefully every other turn, but every turn would be wanted. Obviously, some of the Chi are a little less good. A drop in the ocean does reduce power, but we can play it on an attack that has already resolved and done its damage to flip it, so it's not all too bad. And cards like Stir the Pot, Pass Over, Preserve Tradition, Rising Sun, Setting Moon, and Homage to Ancestors are our note/minimal target cards that we can easily flip. The green that tips the scale is +1 power, which makes it decently strong, even though we don't have the most hit effects in our deck. And Path Well Traveled can sometimes be a little useful if we're on a turn where we have, say, 2 Mauling Keys and we just want to give one go again. Then, of course, Sacred Art Jade Tiger Domain is Zen's Mystic instant. We'll read this one since we didn't go over it in the last video. Sacred Art Jade Tiger Domain is a blue 3-cost Mystic Ninja instant. It's legendary, and it has, if you've played another blue card this turn, choose 3, otherwise choose 1. Create 2 Crouching Tigers in your hand. Your Crouching Tigers get +1 power this turn, and Transcend. This is an effect that's just generally pretty strong for what Zen wants to be doing. It makes all your Tigers actual playable attacks. It's great with Shifting Winds, and it does still give you some Tigers to be able to go a little wide or use with a card like Tiger Swipe. This is generally a pretty good instant. I wouldn't play Zen without it, but I think it's probably not the most important thing for you. Of course, it's a legendary. You can only play 1, so why wouldn't you play the 1? But I don't think it's the most extremely powerful card ever. I think it's just pretty decent. Sometimes I find myself just playing it as it by itself just to transcend it, because getting a Chi in your deck is really important for your helmet, and that's generally the main use for it. It's a Chi you can play by itself, but of course when you do get its 3 effects off, it is pretty strong. Since we're already looking at the blues, let's just take a look at the rest of the cards that are only blue in this deck. Ancestral Harmony is a pump to all of our combo attacks, which every actual attack in this deck has combo. And we banish the top card of our deck, and if it has combo, we can play it this turn. So if we got a card that mattered off the top, which is our attacks, will be able to play it. Really good card. It shot up a lot because of decks like Zen, who use this card to an insanely strong effect. And then Shifting Winds of the Mystic Beast. This is a 1-cost Mystic Ninja action. Whenever you play a Crouching Tiger this turn, name a card, and then that Crouching Tiger gets that name. And if she was pitched to play the Shifting Winds, you create 2 Crouching Tigers in your hand. A really strong effect that can generate tigers for its own use. You do need to be careful though, because if you generate energy off of your 12-petal Kasaya, you can't pitch HE to play the Shifting Winds. So if you have a turn where you're planning on using the Shifting Winds and it wasn't like a tutored off Traverse Chi, make sure to not gain resources off your Kasaya, or if you do, make sure you say maybe swing your weapon first, even though you won't get the pump because you're breaking the chain to play the Shifting Winds. You generally always want to be pitching HE for this. Looking at the rest of the deck, there's actually one attack in the deck that doesn't have combo, which is Be Like Water. Be Like Water is just a simple head jab, but on hit, it can give you a Surging Strike, Twin Twister, or Head Jab as its name for only 1 resource. Pretty decent. It's a red that combos with your Aspect of Body. If you give it Surging Strike, your Descendant comes in for an extra 2 damage, which is pretty nice, and it's free, so you're still paying the same amount of resources to make the Be Like Water Surging Strike. And there are some times where I've even made Be Like Water a Twin Twister, so my Spinning Wheel Kick gets its +1 and go on the bottom on hit from its own combo. So Be Like Water does have a lot of use in this deck. We have a few other simple attacks we'll go over real quick. Aspect of Tiger Body is a 0 for 3 with combo. When it attacks, if a red action was the last attack this combat chain, it gets go again and you make a tiger in your banish zone. This one's really strong with Chase the Tail, which is a 1 for 4 with combo with a Crouching Tiger to get go again and give your next tiger +3. If you came in with a tiger before the Chase the Tail, you can play an Aspect of Tiger Body right after, since the Chase the Tail's red, and then play the tiger off the Aspect for at least 3 because of the pump from the Chase the Tail, which is actually an insanely strong 3-card hand that this deck can do. If you have a tiger, say off your shoe, and a blue, you can swing with the Tiger Taming Chakra, swing with the tiger from your shoes, then play a Chase the Tail into an Aspect of Body, into the second tiger from the Aspect, which would trigger your Shuko, coming in for an insanely high damage 3-card hand off of just 1 equipment. So Chase the Tail is an incredibly strong card. If you'll notice, this deck isn't on Breed Anger. For this specific list, I felt Breed Anger was a little weak, and I decided not to play it. I would rather be on Chase the Tail almost all the time. But I think if you don't want to get Chase the Tails, I think they're pretty cheap right now, but I could see this card going up. You could replace it for Breed Anger if you wanted to. Mauling Key is a 1 for 5 that on combo, if it hits, and Crouching Tiger was the last attack in the combat chain, you do 1 to each opponent. This was originally from the Around the Table Precon UPF decks, but it's an incredibly strong card that is the highest damage 1-cost card that Ninja can actually play, which is insane. It's a, in theory, 1 for 6 because on hit you do an extra 1, and it just is a strong 2-card hand. With a blue in this, you can Chakra into this for 7. If you had a tiger, you theoretically get +2 because the 1 from the Chakra on the tiger and then the combo on the Mauling Key. So still a really good card. Great chain ender, especially in this deck since it's just a big, cheap attack that you can just throw out. Spinning Wheel Kick is a 1 for 4 with go again. The combo doesn't matter all too much, but it combos with Twin Twisters in itself to get +1 and on hit go on bottom. Pretty useful. It's mainly just in the deck though, because it's a 1-for-4 combo. We can banish off Ancestral Harmony, and it has go again. The final pure red attack that we're playing is Tiger Swipe. This is a 0-for-2 with a combo on, again, a Crouching Tiger to get +2 and go again, and on hit you make X tigers in your banish zone, where X is the number of tigers you control, and then you may play them this turn. This card's incredibly strong on turns where you get a Sacred Art or a Art of War up, since all your tigers become live. In a lot of situations, this is a must block by your opponent, and that's just incredibly strong. As well as it can just be a 0-for-4 go again in some situations, so it's really not bad in that sense. Now let's talk about the main attacks in the deck. Bonds of Ancestry and Descendant Gustwave. I'm not going to be reading these because they are pretty basic. You should understand them in general since they're so old, I guess. Outsiders is pretty old. But this is the main bread and butter of the deck. You'll be playing Descendant Gustwave. Notably, though, we're on 9 bonds, 3 red, 3 blue, and 2 yellow Descendant. We want the blue Descendant a lot because it's a blue with go again that can trigger our Transcend, similarly why we're on the blue 100 wins, as well as the 9 bonds, the 3 blue bonds, because we want the blues to be able to trigger Transcended and be able to get Chi for our Zen's ability. But so we'll be playing a Descendant Gustwave into a bonds, hopefully finding something like a Spinning Wheel Kick or a Chase the Tail, and then we'll Transcend, get something else. The perfect line, I think, for this deck is playing something like a blue Descendant into a Transcend to gain another resource. So say you pitched a blue for the blue Descendant, then you Transcend. You use Zen to tutor up your bonds, you get a red one. You play the red bonds, you play a chase, and then you get a Chase the Tail. You get to come in with your weapon into the Tiger from Zen and do a Chase the Tail into something like an Aspect to get another Tiger, to have another Tiger to come in with the Chase, and then maybe if you had the resource and the card, you can pay for a Mauling Key, or you can play a Tiger Swipe. Just get some insane damage output with the consistency that Zen gets with how many tutors he gets from his own ability from the bonds. Of course, the main way you're going to be wanting to play this deck is just by going Descendant Bonds, Descendant Bonds, Descendant Bonds, which is a lot easier with our shifting wins, because that can become Tiger Bonds, Tiger Bonds, Tiger Bonds, into just really whatever else we want. So this deck just gets to do so much damage if we can get a pump turn, especially a double pump turn. If we can get an Art of War and an Ancestral on our main combo turn, that's absolutely huge. The last attacks in our main board are just 3 red and 3 blue 100 wins. The blue ones trigger our Transcend, and the red ones just come in for some good damage, especially even on, say, a Shifting Winds turn, where if we get enough Tigers, we can just play 100 wins for a heck of a lot of damage. Finally, let's take a look at our deck's sideboard. We play 3 Command and Conquer, just because it's a super simple, strong attack. 3 the Weakest Link, because it's strong versus Illusionists, as well as KO, since they play a lot of non-blocks. Thankfully, even though the Weakest Link is a new card from Part the Mistveil, there are 2 incredibly accessible new options for poppers that we can be playing. Battlefront Bastion, as well as Blanche. If you don't have either CNC or Weakest Link, or maybe not even have both, you can easily play these 2 cards. Battlefront Bastion is very strong versus Enigma, since you can block their first shield and then prevent one of their next attack. And Blanche is very good versus all the Mystic Heroes, as well as the Illusionists again, because they're all color-based. Of course, you can play something like an Amnesia if you're worried about a Ninja Mirror, or a Humble because Humble is still very strong, but these are from the new set. They're pretty cheap. You can easily pick them up and play them over CNC and the Weakest Link, but I do think CNC and the Weakest Link are probably the two strongest that you can be playing. CNC is great versus our Illusionist matchups as a popper, but its main goal is actually for our Ranger matchup because Azalea is very, very dangerous. And the Weakest Link is good versus the Illusionists again, since they're on a bunch of no blocks, as well as KO, one of our aggro matchups, because they play a lot of no blocks. As well as this card could be useful into something like Mystic Heroes because of their no blocks. I guess if you catch them with the Chi in their hand, it's great, but they can just play their instants anyway, and you won't get your card draw. But I guess it still forces them to do it. The rest of the sideboard is 3 Flick Flack for any matchup we need to be a little more defensive. A Hurricane Technique, because with our shifting winds, we can get a very strong turn of going Tiger, naming Rising Knee Thrust into Hurricane Technique. If it hits, this goes back to our hand. We play another Tiger, we play the Technique, we play another Tiger, we play the Technique. Of course, it needs a fair bit of resources, and it requires our opponent not to block the Hurricane Technique, but in the decks that we can force to get rid of all their cards, maybe decks that want to block a little more, they might block early. Having a Hurricane Technique can just do an insane amount of damage to your opponent, or it can just force cards out of them and we can still go after since it has +1, go again, all of that. Tenacity is going to come in versus a matchup. We're going to bring in our Mask of the Pouncing Lynx simply because it's just a pretty strong aggro card. On a turn your opponent has to block, you can seriously punish them. And we're not on Assault Wound because there's just so many other things you can get with the Mask as well. We can get Tiger Swipes or Blue Bonds. I guess we can get Descendants or 100 Wins if we need a blue. But mainly we'll be getting a Swipe or a Blue Bonds off of it. But Tenacity is just an easy extra target. And then finally, Cosmic Awakening is a card that will come in versus decks that will try to fatigue us, since those decks we can generally set up enough chi so we can have a hand where we actually just play this for 20. Or it's going to come in versus New, because we don't want to give New an Orion because it's just 2 free cards for her. We'll be bringing in Cosmic Awakening instead because it's a card that actually just does nothing for them. I also have 2 Snags in the maybe board. Another matchup that's pretty difficult for Zen is New. Azalea and New are probably his 2 most difficult matchups. And Snag is a card that can be incredibly useful in that matchup, stopping their reactions or their own attacks from pumping themselves. So Snag can be a card that just stops your opponent dead in their tracks from actually hurting you all too much or disrupting you, because you can use Snag on a turn. You're going to use your helmet and your shoes to block their small attack as well as stop them from pumping it up. Of course, Snag is a little expensive, which is why I have it in the maybe board for now, but if you wanted to put it in, you could go down maybe the Weakest Links, or you could maybe go down these few tech cards if you don't think you need them, or even maybe the Pouncing Lynx. But if you do go down that, I would suggest putting in something like a Spellfright instead, because your Mask or your Traverse the Universe is not good in a Kano. You should be playing some other headpiece in case you play into that matchup, either it be Norune, Spellfright, or Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. But that's going to be the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. My last Enigma video got a ton of views, and I'm very thankful for that. Thank you all if you made it to the end of that one, as well as if you made it to the end of this one. Next week, we'll be taking a look at a new deck list, and then I'm not sure if we'll hop into some other heroes. I've been working on a Fi list, which I know I didn't make one for Fi last set, but this set, Fi actually got an insane amount of support from the generic cards in the set. So Fi, even though he's not very strong still, might have a shot to come back at one point with some of these new cards. Or if we just go straight back into Enigma again, I'll have to see once we get there. But for now, I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all have a good day, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.